Good afternoon, and welcome to the second in our series of webinars hosted by I Love Claims and curated by Tractable. Chris Ashworth, I'm the chair and founder of I Love Claims and work for Enterprise Holdings, looking after their claims operations. I am the guest host today for this second session. And the second of our webinars is talking today about testing tech, getting hands-on with solutions and evaluating what works. So when Alex and I first had a conversation about this, we kind of thought a series of webinars for claims professionals who are inundated with new insurtech, claims tech opportunities day in, day out, would be a really useful asset, and that has been supported by the level of registrations we've had today. Hopefully you've not had to drive too far to your preferred Zoom location with the current lack of petrol. Alex is laughing, you're probably seeing it on the news over there in the States, but less about that and more about today's session. So let's kick off just introducing you to our panel today. We've got Alex Dalek, Chief Exec and co-founder of Tractable. It'll be morning for you, Alex, I guess.
That's right. But good afternoon to everyone else.
Thank you. We've got Ian Thompson, Chief Claims Officer at Zurich Insurance. Good afternoon, Ian.
Good to see everybody. Hi, everybody.
We've got Tony Ems, Insurance Business Advisor. Hey, Tony.
Hi, hello there.
And last but by no means least, we've got Gordon Vater, Director, Loss Adjusting and Claims Consultancy at Gallagher Bassett. So let's kick off the discussion. I'm going to start with Ian, because the question's got insurer in the title. Ian, why is it so hard for insurers to test new solutions? And what are some of the challenges that companies face when evaluating all of this new technology?
Yeah, it's a problem we face every day. And look, I'll speak from a Zurich perspective, but hopefully it's reflective of other organizations. I think there's multiple facets. I think one of the things that we start with is that we're extremely complex organizations, and therefore you think that you've got some progress because you've had a discussion with somebody, and then you find that maybe they're not the ones who are either holding the purse strings or access to the IT or what other things that there might be. So there's a challenge in just navigating through organizations like insurers and finding the right people to talk to, which I really recognize. The second thing is that we are extremely well governed. We have lots of rules. Now, those rules are driven by a variety of things, regulators being a primary one, but also internal standards. I know from working with fintechs and other digital entrepreneurs that sometimes those things are just really challenging to engage with and work through. So those create obstacles that are there for really good reasons, but can feel like a real inhibitor to innovation. So I think those are two of the things. I'd say the other thing as well, which is really getting clear what the proposition is. And sometimes your proposition is really clear in your head, but when you come into an insurer, trying to turn it into something that they recognize the benefits around can be a challenge. And that's sometimes some very good dialogue that I've had with pitches and in dialogue with entrepreneurs that we can shape things, but coming in and saying, we know what your problem is and we're here to solve it cannot always be the right approach, because particularly in claims, it's amazing how many people are claims experts when somebody uses the word innovation and failing to recognize that maybe the expertise actually sits at the moment with the people who are actually working through the problems. It is a good starting point.
Excellent. And I'm going to pick on Tony next, and I'm going to take you back to your days when you were working in insurance, Tony, so perhaps you can be a little bit more candid these days. Is there a case that the claims end of an insurance business is underinvested, poor relation, because all the money gets spent on the cool end of attracting new customers and selling more beer, as I would say?
I think things are changing. I think years ago, the answer to your question would be yes, claims is underinvested. But in the last 5 years or so, maybe 5 to 10, I think the picture is changing somewhat to people realizing that when they sell a policy to the customer, they're not just selling a book with words in it and a finance department, etc. What they're buying is a service. Claims is the let's do it end of the business. And you could have a nice fancy policy booklet with pictures on it, but if the claims service is no good, then what's the point in buying the policy? So I think as a result of that realization, claims is now actually moving into the new world. There's a lot of technology around, and I think insurers are beginning to embrace that.
That's good, because I remember when we started off on the ILC journey 10, 11 years ago, a big part of our focus was to try and raise awareness around what, selfishly we've always thought is, to your point, Tony, the business end of insurance, the moment of truth, why people actually need insurers in that moment of distress. So that's good to hear that that's taking place. Gordon, you're bringing a perspective from kind of the home and property area of the business. This isn't a webinar today just about motor claims. This is about how we evaluate technology in all areas of our business, because I think, as we've heard already, by nature we are claims professionals, and haven't really been trained or tutored in the art of buying good technology. What are you seeing on the property side, Gordon?
I think we're starting to see more tech being deployed in that property space. But I think somebody used the phrase last week, it's the digital journey with some insurers and some organizations is a bit veneer, right? Okay. There's elements, you've got front end, right? Okay. And everyone seems to be doing a hell of a lot in the front end. And then you've got the rest of the process going through, right? Okay. And the back end, actually, the way you make payments to people and whatever, actually is still quite archaic, right? So I think, things are happening in that property space. Everyone's talking about video technology, and there's definite benefits. The caution I would have is, I think for some of the major players, they've got to be very clear on what they are trying to deliver to their customer and really understand the benefit that is coming to the customer of some of this technology, because, it's not going to fit everyone. Mrs. Miggins, 97 years of age, video tech is not going to solve her problem, right? You need the people on the ground, so you need to have a very, very clear view of what that technology is going to bring. I'm going to just pick up on something Ian said. As a vendor going into insurers, they're big beasts, right? Actually finding where you've got to go and actually talk to the right people is a huge challenge. I do think sometimes we walk in and don't have that real understanding of what they are looking for. But equally, the challenge back, I would say, to some of the insurers is be very clear on what you want as well. What is it you are trying to achieve? Because sometimes, the best solutions are when we can work far closer together, but it's understanding each other a lot more. I think that is evolving and getting better, but it's still got some way to go.
And I think Ian's point, applies to most things in life, understanding the problem we're actually trying to solve, rather than being prescriptive about what an insurer needs, is always a good way of getting past the first line of defense, I would suggest. So Alex, as the guy that's got to kind of overcome all of these hurdles, let's bring you into the conversation. Remind us the problem Tractable's trying to solve. Let's stick to the mantra. And then maybe just give us a couple of thoughts to kick off about how you think insurers can overcome some of the challenges that Ian's talked about. And then we'll move on to what a good test process looks like.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris. Gordon mentioned video. This is quite close to what Tractable does. So So what Tractable does, in 2012, you had a breakthrough in computer vision, where researchers figured out that they could train algorithms to describe the contents of imagery or video as accurately as a human can. And so that Tractable was born out of the idea of, wait a second, this probably means that appraising a car is no longer going to be limited to the privileged few who have years of car repairs in their heads. It's going to be democratized and made available to anyone with a smartphone. Meaning anyone with a smartphone can scan the car, and if that car is damaged, produce an appraisal of that damage and know how much this will cost to repair and what the repair procedures are, which parts need to be replaced, how much paint, and so forth. Obviously, that stands to dramatically improve the claim experience, as Gordon said, for the people who want to pull out their phone and kind of walk around their car. But I think that population is increasing very rapidly. When you look at our average age adoption, not all 80-plus-year-olds do this, but we've had a few. Concretely, I think, because you mentioned what's the impact to insurers. One stat I find fascinating is in most countries, a motor claim takes about 20 days from start to finish. I think the UK is actually a leader globally, where it's closer to maybe 15. Chris, you probably know these numbers better than I do on the UK specifically.
Except if it's non-fault, obviously, Alex.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But what I find fascinating is it's let's say 15 to 20 days to go from start to finish on a motor claim. If you exclude the cases of real body injury, fixing the car is only about 8 hours of work. So why the hell should it be taking that long? And the idea is, well, wait a second. If the driver can just scan their car and we immediately know what all of the repair procedures need to be, we don't need to wait any longer to know if this car is repairable, right? The intelligence is telling us that. If it's repairable, we don't need to wait another couple of days to find a body shop and schedule with them. You should be able to do it directly on your phone. And once you've done that and you've scheduled your drop-off, we don't need to wait for the car to reach the shop to order parts. You know which parts need to be replaced and they can be sent to that shop. So the moment you drop off your car, the parts are in the shop and that car is going to be returned to your policyholder within 2 days. That's what Tractable does. That's the vision. It is obviously a journey. We have 25 of the global top 100 motor insurers on this journey, from UK, France, other parts of Europe to US and Japan. But maybe as a concrete example of how it's a staged journey, Ageas last year won the British Insurance Awards by using Tractable to ask their drivers to scan their car and identify 90% of total losses correctly, as long as Gordon said, the driver's happy to do so with their phone. So that's what we do. In terms of how to overcome the challenges that Ian, you discussed, it does. I think it does come down to, as you said, Ian, being able to talk the language of claims professionals. And so it's not about, babbling on about computer vision and neural networks and GPUs. It's about talking about cycle time, indemnity, repair cost, efficiency, and touch points. I think if you can express things in those ways that a claims director has as KPIs they need to achieve, then you can match up. They can decide, yes, I do need some help on my repair cost, or no, I don't, thank you very much. I am trying to increase my total loss identification early on. And then, okay, hopefully that progresses to, let's try to test this.
Thanks, Alex. So,
sorry, Chris, can I just add to that? It was implied, but I don't think said there by Alex, but there's the whole customer journey as well. Customers will see this reduced cycle time, and that's a great benefit to them, getting their car back on the road. And also, I think the product gives customers choices, and I think that's very, very important. We see that a lot, don't we, in household claims. Use your own contractor or use the supply chain. So I think the tractable thing, the tractable proposition allows different solutions to be used. So effectively, claims can be settled on the spot, potentially at the scene of the accident. And so if some people would like cash, fine. If some people wish to have their car repaired, then fine, as Alex explained. But I think importantly also is the question of third-party claims. We've known for a long time about third-party repair costs, credit repair, credit hire, etc. And I think if you can make a settlement offer to a third party very, very quickly, it has potential financial benefits to the insurer.
Absolutely. What's interesting for me listening to you there, Alex, and going back to Ian's point, and something that I try and say every day, the problems we're solving. Having been lucky enough to meet you fresh out of university when you were on the start of the tractable journey, I think back then it was very much about, here's what it does, and the problem we think we're going to solve is you won't need human beings to engineer or estimate. In all the conversation we've just had, that's not actually the key benefit. It's probably more of a feature. So have you found that your understanding of the insurance market has had to evolve so that you can understand the problems better? And I guess there my point is, when we have tech people selling to insurers, quite often the same language isn't spoken. How do you overcome that bit in tractable? How do you get that subject matter expertise into the business?
Try and identify people like Chris Ashworth early on in your journey that can teach you all this stuff. I've got to give credit to Chris for being the first one to explain just how much impact you can have if your intelligence is used at first notice of loss. That is the first time I ever heard that was really from Chris. But I think, one thing that we did is earlier in our journey, we thought, oh, great, we're going to solve computer vision problems in all kinds of fields, cars and homes and geology and dermatology. And we realized we had to go very narrow and really start on just one single industry. So I think by doing that, by basically thinking nothing but motor claims day in, day out for 5-6 years, you eventually accumulate that knowledge. You have to stay very curious, of course, but indeed, at some point, you also need to bring in that expertise in-house. And so, actually, for example, working with Tony Ems and kind of helping to leverage his expertise and know-how.
Okay, so you've put your best jacket on. You've given us the pitch. You've paid me some very flattering compliments, Alex. I'm all in. Tony, how do we test if what Alex is telling us actually works?
Well, it's one of the ways of doing this is to look at settled claims retrospectively and see what happened versus what could have happened. I think that's the easiest way, and that was the approach that was taken initially. That can demonstrate financial benefits quite clearly to the insurer. It might also generate conversations about their current supply chain. And so I think that's the easiest way. Then going forward, the tool can be used to compare what is happening today with current repair processes versus what might could be the case rather if you used a solution like tractable. So I think with all implementations of technology, you have to test. You can't just take it as read that when a technology provider comes along and promises the earth, that it actually is going to deliver the earth. So you must test.
So proof of concept, benchmarking it against existing performance and trying to see if there is a discernible difference in performance, cost outcome, customer service, all those good things we've talked about, that justifies the return on the investment. Ian, we're claims people. We've got systems that are hung together with pieces of string. Our handlers are having to look at 9 different portals and logins during any one claim. How the hell do we accommodate Alex for this test that he wants to do for us?
Well, you raise a really important point, not just on the systems. I'll come back to that in a minute, but the people inside of this is so important. And so often we get excited about the bright, shiny, technology, but we forget it's people that actually implement it, utilize it. So the user experience side has got to be part of the consideration. Maybe it's not the place you start, but you just don't ignore that as part of this. How is this going to work for the handler? Is this going to make their life more complicated, or is it going to make it simpler? And honestly, if it's going to make it simpler, you're onto a great thing already. And that, as you said, the integration with the multiple systems, the multiple screens, that has got to be a recognition. It's not just about how a particular proposition fits in to solve the overall customer journey or repair journey or whatever it might be. It's actually, how does it fit into the day-to-day work, the hour-by-hour work, the delivery of the service from the claims handler? And that should be part of the testing. And of course, with a lot of these solutions, let's face it, we're kind of doing a turkeys and Christmas thing, aren't we? Because we come in and go, good news, we're going to be able to increase the efficiency of this team by 40%. And nobody's naive enough these days to think, oh, fantastic, we're going to be given 40% more time to do other stuff. The reality there is that we're going to see, efficiency in everybody's minds equals headcount reduction. So how do you get people engaged around solving the problems that they face in a positive way is really important, and making their lives simpler for sure. But then as well, thinking through that integration with the legacy systems. And again, is that going to make things smoother, or is it going to increase the challenges and the touch points within the process?
I think just add to that, Christopher, mate. I think what Ian said there, the people part of this is critical, right? Okay. And I think it's often the bit that is forgotten, right? Okay. So technology comes in, it's nice, shiny, we're going to do this, it's the panacea, it's going to save insurance claims for the rest of the time. People are sitting there thinking, well, hang on a minute, what's going to happen to my job, right? And what we as leaders in the industry have to do is to say, well, no, it's going to make your job easier, right? Okay, you're going to be allowed to concentrate on the bits of your job you really enjoy, and we're going to remove some of the noise and the granular stuff away from you to help you do that. So I think the people thing, if you can get that and you crack that, and you get the right people in the test environment working with you from the front end, you're onto a winner, I would say.
And that, yeah, I think that turkey's voting for Christmas piece, it's the same with any great idea, innovation, automation, isn't it? I'm really pleased that the conversation today hasn't until then really focused on, yes, it needs to take swathes of people and OPEX out of the process, because I've always been a big believer that, we buy motor insurance. We've always talked about the fact that it's a legal requirement. It's not a purchase any of us particularly look forward to making. We don't sit there looking at our glossy policy booklets, as Tony mentioned earlier. We have to do it. We claim probably once every 13 years. So, and again, that's not something that we particularly look forward to. And I don't care how digital things get. When that car gets hit, in the side at 30 miles an hour, I want to speak to somebody, and I am passionate that motor claims needs to be an omni-channel experience. I think, the app on the phone and the self-reporting and calmly peeling yourself out of the car to do that. It may happen from time to time in certain incidents, but insurance and claims will always be about people. That's my rant over. Ian, I'll go Ian and Alex on this one. So what has Zurich done to expand its team, expand its skill set, create environments where you can play with technology and benchmark it, because I'm guessing it's a different type of animal to our traditional claims handlers.
Yeah, so I guess let me kind of take a top down and also bottom up view, if you like. So we have a fantastic guy in our team called Andrew Fairclough, and Andrew plays the role of being the hub, the conduit, and the matchmaker. Andrew's established a network of endeavor globally, which involves not just claims professionals, but also people from ops, from customer, from our change teams. And therefore, when we get propositions coming into us, my first route is usually to give Andrew a call, or more often drop him an email and go, can you take a look at this one? And Andrew's able to essentially triage that and go, do we have a problem somewhere that this matches up to? Have we seen 27 of these kind of things before? Or actually, have we tested it in one place and we'd just be repeating the same thing? So that's an example about how we're bringing people in to get involved in this. And the thing that Andrew's achieved, which I think is making that approach very successful, is that engagement of teams outside of claims, and to bring those people in. So actually the stakeholders are there from the start when you start to work on something. Let me flip it down now to a UK example, and talking to David Nichols, the UK CCO, the other day. The way that David's approaching it is to find people within the claims team who have got digital capability. Maybe they've done an HND, HNC, or a degree, or it's a hobby, but bring those guys in and start to get them working so that they bring claims expertise into an environment. There's a comfort with the language, to pick up on, one of Gordon's points and what Alex was saying. There's a comfort with the language, there's a knowledge of claims, and therefore it just helps that initial engagement where people are needing to speak the common language, that just a little bit easier to move out on.
So a filter, and I'm chuckling to myself, having known Andrew for 20 plus years. I can only imagine how many people are drafting an email to pitch something to him. Now you have...
if it takes them out of my inbox, that's great.
His name's not really Andrew Fairclough. So that filter that says, let's make sure we're not already doing this. Let's make sure we've not seen lots of these before and rejected. Are they a credible business, and so kind of, I guess, just not taking everything into the demo phase. And then, I agree, handlers, as we get older and they all look younger and much more digitally savvy than we will ever be, bring back the green screen, hey. Alex, from your experience, what works well inside an insurance company, apart from obviously closing a sale, but what's, without naming names, what's a good path from your perspective, from donning the jacket? And I know I keep mentioning it, thank you for shrugging the stereotypical grey hoodie today. How do you go from pitch to test to decision?
Okay, so the question is, it's not that moment from pitch to let's test. How do we make that one successful? Is that right, Chris? Not so much test to, we're going to do this and implement this, but the first one. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was just laughing at Andrew Fairclough's
message in
chat. Sorry, slightly distracted there, Alex.
You're not listening to my coaching on that.
All right, yeah. Andrew, apologies for all the tractable emails we're going to be receiving in advance.
Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Yep. No worries. So how do you go from pitch to test? And what have you seen work well, without naming names?
Yeah, the happy path, if you will.
Yeah, of course.
And being candid, that says, I'm guessing, you need to see, feel, and believe the value the product demonstrates. So, put yourself through the kind of rigorous but happy path for me.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you always get a boost if there's a big difference between being looking for a first adopter and then having proven success and working more with fast followers. We see a huge difference there. So You know, for us, for example, this is a name we can give. We've given it already, but you know, Ageas in the UK using us and winning an award for it. This will help make, you know, Ageas's competitors much more keen to at least test it out and see quick test to see if it can drive any kind of value to our organization. However, I think what Ian was saying about this needs to not just make sense for the chief claims officer's KPIs, but for the team that would be adopting it. And, you know, those efficient, those, as you say, you know, turkey and Christmas concerns, yeah, those are absolutely key as well. And there's certainly a credibility piece. So for example, you know, Chris, you were saying, you know, humans aren't going to disappear from the claims process. And I couldn't agree more. You're always going to need claim handlers to provide that human touch point. You're actually always going to need motor engineers as well to manage the network, to have a chat with the managers of the repairers or the contractors on the home side, to make sure that the repair standards are right, that the cycle times are right. You know, the AI is surfacing all those insights and recommending those decisions, but at the end, you've still got to have a conversation between humans. And so what often happens is indeed, okay, does this actually simplify my day-to-day? And that's where, yeah, workflow is definitely something new that we learned, Chris, coming in that we didn't know about before. As you mentioned, you know, those 8 screens, oh goodness, is Tractable going to introduce another one? And so I think maybe this is some advice from Tony. I think Tony is famous for having brought Guidewire into Zurich. Our integration with Guidewire, hopefully, you know, makes that easier and it helps reduce the number of screens and the challenge to adopting. I remember an I Love Claims conference where Chris was saying, you know, do these insurtechs have any chance if they don't have integrations into Guidewires and the like? So that's a big piece. But then, yeah, even the motor engineers, what we find is you're basically coming in saying, I've created a computer algorithm that knows how to do motor engineering. And I've never fixed a car. And I am 15 years younger. That is kind of hard, right? That is really, really hard for you as a motor engineer, senior motor engineer, to take that on. And so you've got to absolutely have motor engineering credibility on your team. And that's something that we've realized is important, not just for our R&D, but also for how you engage with customers. So getting motor engineering bought in, super important. So I would say you'll get to a test if the motor engineering team is bought in, the claim handling team is bought in, and the chief claims officer, the director of claims, is really keen for this to happen. That individual is the one that can really set things in motion.
Sure. Gordon, Tony, any thoughts from you on that? You know, what a good process to follow in terms of testing software now once we've bought into the pitch?
I think, sorry, Tony, I was just going to say, I think for me, a very simplistic thing is being very clear on what your outcomes of that testing is going to be. I've seen too many projects go through phases and you're suddenly there distracted into other things, and then you lose the end goal sight, and then somebody sits there and goes, well, that's fizzled out, or we're not going to deliver that, or whatever. So I think, you know, just from a very basic point of view, be very, very clear, right, on that review methodology, right, and how that is being calculated and what that outcome is going to be, and then stick to it, right? That would be my take. Sorry, Tony.
Tony, does that just on top of whatever you're going to say next, would you just kind of give me your thoughts on how you would go about thinking about what the right return on investment is? So, you know, to Gordon's point, let's agree what good looks like before we start the testing process. Would we be looking for a return on investment that was at least on par with the cost of the technology? Has it got to be 2-3 times the cost? Do you think that comes into the testing and decision-making process?
Well, of course it does, but it's only one factor.
Yeah.
You need to, as somebody said, you have to have a goal in mind. You need to have a benchmark that you're going to test it against. And the benefits that you measure are not just financial. They can be efficiency, and there's also the customer service aspect, as I mentioned earlier. So how do you wrap all these together and tick a box to say, yes, we should proceed with this? One of the other problems that you have to consider is, what about the incumbent provider? They're never going to be cooperative in any work that you are seeking to do, especially for obvious reasons. It might not be great news for them. So if they are in any way involved in, or may be involved in the proof of concept process, they're going to do the best to make sure that they don't provide the information or cooperate with you in any way, or seek to make your proposition or your proof of concept unsuccessful. So you've got to wrap all those things into the solution, or to the answer to the question. The problem is, how many cases do you put through your proof of concept? It needs to be a statistically viable number, but it's easier to calculate the financial bits. How do you measure the customer service bit? You can possibly take customer satisfaction surveys on your old process, on your new process. You need to run the things in parallel. How do you cut out the noise in the process? All of these things are extremely important, rather than just saying, oh, the return of investment is 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 over the next couple of years.
Sure. So we've got some tangible measures, some intangible measures. I'm sure you've not had any of those issues with incumbents, particularly in America, Alex, on your journey. I'm sure everyone has just been super helpful in replacing old world with new world, but we could perhaps talk about that over a coffee when you're next in the UK. Mr. Thompson, who has got a wry smile on his face. So for you as an insurer, we stay away from specifics around Zurich. We've talked about customer satisfaction. We've talked about kind of indemnity spend. Tony's mentioned third-party claims costs. Any other important factors, and what sort of weighting would you place on those?
Yeah, thanks. And building on Tony's point, I guess, let me tackle it from this angle, which is, Andrew's just saying, by the way, that his laptop's falling over with all the LinkedIn connections he's now getting. That's why the wry smile was there. But that also links into it, is people can look at organizations like Zurich and just see, the last annual results came out and it was profit and number of customers, etc. And you assume that when you go into the chief claims officer, or wherever the point of contact might be, the head, head of innovation, whatever, they've got direct access to all those billions. They haven't. And therefore, recognizing that you need to start somewhere, and in the context of a proof of concept, think about what you can realistically link to. To Tony's point, how can we actually be jointly entrepreneurial about this? How can we start with a relatively small test to prove something that you can then scale up from? And I think that's one of the things. Don't come into an organization thinking, well, we know you deal with 7.5 million claims in Zurich, so that means, I'm just, we'll do the math and the dollar signs are spinning around in people's eyes. No, let's actually look at which country, which line of business, which customer group, which policy type, where are we going to start? How can we start small and manageable? We can get something therefore that somebody can find the money to support, and then scale up from that. And that scaling up piece, I think, is really important. It's one of our biggest challenges, sometimes within country, but definitely globally, is that when we try and avoid, and Andrew spends a lot of time on this, is that issue of we build the same thing multiple times in multiple countries. One of our ambitions is to see scaling up from particular locations or lines of business, crossing that over so that we're doing things once. And therefore coming in with that idea of starting small, we're building out, proving the case, getting the dialogue going. But I'd also say co-creation. There is a really important thing here. We're coming in and going, we have the solution, but we are so passionate about our code the way we do things, that we're just completely intractable around the way that we might change the way of doing things. That's always a challenge for us. So, consider those aspects as well. And what I say is there are entrepreneurs, but in big organizations, there are intrapreneurs, the people who find out ways to get things done in big organizations. Can tap into those guys, then that's a really good start.
And you've solved part of that problem for us today, because you look at Zurich, all those countries, big organisation, all those different lines of business. Where does a young entrepreneur start to find the intrapreneur? And today we have solved that problem live on ILC. Thanks to Mr. Fairclough, Alex, and Gordon. Ian's just mentioned the different geographies there, the different product lines. Alex, you've done a great job of scaling up super fast in relative terms in the world of insurance. Perhaps not as quickly as if you'd set up a taxi business a few years ago. But how are you finding it from market to market? What are the differences, and how would you go about making Ian feel good that he'd got something that was unique to Zurich rather than just something that every other insurer had?
Yeah. Okay. So
in fact, let's split that. Let's talk about different markets. What do you see the big differences between the markets you're playing in?
So I'll be maybe specific to the motor side. One thing I find striking is the large European insurers, this includes UK, highly federated, right? Where the group level cannot really roll out in multiple countries. That's really hard to do. I think I caught some clues from Ian that maybe Zurich is looking to do that, which would be really impressive. But certainly when you look at the other big four, Europe-based, it's bloody hard. You've got to go country by country. Each one says, I don't care what the group says, thank you very much. This is my turf. And so you have to set up local teams that develop local relationships with the claims teams on the ground. So for example, there is a Zurich country out there. We was just asked by the team to sign a contract. So we'll be kicking off some work, but that's just in one of the many Zurich countries, and we have to repeat this over and over again. That's maybe one thought in terms of adoption and testing, right? So I think the dream of one test for all countries is unfortunately not there. That is a benefit that you get in the United States, which is the US is about twice the size of the European P&C market, and why you're going to have huge amounts of bureaucracy, so many stakeholders, many more layers. Once you manage to align all those stars and your test runs successfully, the scale that you can then attain is incredible. Maybe in terms of differences by market, I'm always fascinated by there is definitely a differences in laws, right? So for example, the extent to which an insurer can mandate or not whether you can take your car to their preferred repairer.
So steering rules and things, yeah.
Exactly. So steering is a illegal word in the United States, but people will happily use it in other countries. There's also an interesting correlation with how powerful the car manufacturers are in a country. So you look at Japan and Germany, and insurers are far more on the back foot in terms of their process. The Japanese and the Germans are immediately taking their car to their Toyota dealership, to their BMW dealership, and those entities really decide how things are done. Another quirk I find fascinating, and this is where, of course, we've got non-fault in the UK, which you discussed, which perhaps is something the government stepped in before to try to help, but still, companies found their way around it, and we still have many of the same inflation cost issues, which are very specific to the UK. But one thing I love about the UK, and I don't understand why this doesn't exist elsewhere, is mobile repairs. I think that's genius, which is, wait a sec, why do you need to take the car to the shop? Why don't you take the shop to the car. And that's actually another area I'm going to allow myself to kind of plug in Tractable. But a mobile repair, there's only so much they can fit inside their van. So imagine if the drivers captured the imagery and okay, we just got to get a left door in this van. Wow, you can now do mobile repairs, not just on 10%, but on a full 30, 40% of repairs, and get that car repaired same day. So that, as Tony was saying, if you want cash, you can take cash. But if you want it repaired, we might even be able to get this repaired today. I think that's very exciting, and I'm surprised that other countries don't yet do this. And so I look to some of the accident management and repair companies like Ready in the UK that have a lot of expertise there, and I'm very excited by the potential for them worldwide.
Fantastic. Gordon, anything to add to those comments about the sort of different markets, the different product types? Obviously, with you come from the property side of things, just give us your perspective on that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's driven by regulation in the different territories. There's lots of different things. At Gallagher's, we're dealing with lots of different types of claims across multiple territories, right? And when you look at where the tech is and how you can introduce it, different lines of business. So UK motor, yeah, fairly early adopters of the tech in certain elements of the claim chain. Property catching up. Things we're seeing in the US at the minute, lots of tech in workers' comp and things like that in the US, flowing down into Australian markets. So I do think it is about the regulation, and it's understanding the markets from the regulatory point of view, right? Okay, and then it's the lines of business and how mature they are in their digital journey. And as I said earlier, some actually think they're further ahead than they actually are when you peel it back.
Chris, maybe I could just build on that with another quick comment. Is one of the things that I discovered kind of 9 years ago when I started to have a more international role is don't underestimate the role of the distribution channel as well.
Yeah.
The easiest one, and I say easiest in inverted commas, is where you've got a direct route to the customer. But as soon as there's an intermediary involved of different flavors, agents, brokers, whatever, it does alter the nature of the control over the claims process. And again, that becomes another stakeholder. You've got to be clear. What's the proposition for the agent in this? Are they going to like it? Are they going to buy into it? Because otherwise, you might not get control of the claim and make the best technology.
Yeah. And we've, one of the things we've not talked about, you've touched on, Alex, the integration with core claims operating platform. But as we expand the ecosystem for a motor claim, we end up with, and this is 10x in property, Gordon. I know enough about the kind of average number of suppliers in a property claim and the size of those vendors and the volume of them to know that what I'm about to say is even more complex. But we've got, repair, rental, we've got maybe salvage, total loss, glass, all at what I would sort of say the top of the ecosystem, because these are types of claim. But then underneath, there are hundreds and thousands of vendors, depending on the market, that we need to be able to integrate this technology with, if we are going to get a true end-to-end digital claims journey. And I remember first meeting you, Alex, and you assuming that everyone in insurance would be open API and you can just connect to anyone very easily because they'd hand over their schemas and their kits, and that's probably not proven to be the case. How do we solve those problems? Because I'm guessing, Ian, Tony, you don't want to make a technology purchase or decision that restricts you or makes you dependent or doesn't enable you to easily try the next best thing that comes along. I often liken the iPhone to this. That's the word. The App Store is the world's best integration ever, isn't it? I can throw my old note-taking app away, download another one, try it, and then move on. How do we get to that point in claims? Tony?
Very difficult, isn't it? I think most most new technologies can link to each other fairly easily. And so I think we're on a journey in the right direction. Years ago, that was not the case. So to the point about old suppliers and how do you move on to a new supplier, and I think it's within the insurer's ability now to think ahead. If they implement obsolescence now, then they have to look at themselves and say, well, that was our fault. You know, we need to be looking forward. And I don't know what to say next, really. The most, as I say, most systems now are easy to integrate. If you cannot integrate with other suppliers and with the mainstream platforms, then to me, you're not even on the list to be considered. And you also need to be able to do it quickly and not too expensive. So I think these are just core requirements that you need to have in place with any supplier.
To be in the
Have a
game.
thought on that, Chris?
I couldn't possibly on this call, Alex, but I think there are various examples in different markets of so if I look at Seeker, that's one of the problems they tried to solve in the US with that kind of standard integration kit. To your point, Tony, you'll always get some form of business that feels competitive advantage is gained away from helping the motor ecosystem connect in a fair, transparent and cost-effective way. CAPS is trying to do that in the UK to connect everyone to anything at a fair price, gratuitous promotion over. Ian, how are you solving that integration problem? Because that must come up time and time again, which is you've got a core operating system, you've got policy systems, systems of records. How are you solving that challenge?
Yeah, and then back as well to the customer, to the user experience that all creates as well. When you flick between a green screen and then some graphical user interface and then something else and cutting and pasting and all of those good things. Increasingly, we're looking at it like this, which is, our core systems. And if you take some of the ones like I-90 that we're still, dealing with, is the technology now can create a layer above that, which really provides the interface and the ability. And I think, in the past, what we tried to do is to build core systems that do everything. But that's so like hard coding and so inflexible that increasingly what we're doing now is saying, do you know what is the core system really wanting? And usually it's data. And from a claim perspective, that's a link to the policy, a value, an update on the value, a collection of the right data, and then a close of the claim at the end. Now, if you can get into that philosophy, then you have far more flexibility. And going back to that point as well, is kind of about getting locked in. I think the challenge we have, and it's to Tony's points as well, and his approach on that is, we don't know what the world's going to look like in 5 years. It is impossible to say this is the experienced people we want. We can work on principles that we know, and choice is one of them. Omni-channel integration, et cetera, is all there. We can look forward as far as we can. What we got, and the word comes up, and I'm sorry that I'm bringing up now, but agility. How do we bring this into what we're doing? How do we actually adapt and develop and have flexibility? Now, flexibility is a really difficult thing to build into contracts and commercial terms. But quite honestly, I struggle now with the behemoth implementations that take 5 years to deliver. Because the problem is when you get to your solution in 5 years, the world moved on, and your business case that we all started with right at that proof of concept that we talked about is now irrelevant. So how do we do much more fast, agile development that builds incrementally, builds out those ecosystems, and therefore creates solutions that we can add on, develop, and in some cases go, right, end of that one because we've got something better. But that agility is very alien to a lot of organizations that entrepreneurs are dealing with, but it's got to be the way forward.
Agreed. Agreed, and thank you for that. So, believe it or not, gents, we've come to, or rapidly coming to the end of our time together. But do not despair, because there is a webinar 3 coming shortly, where we are going to go from having decided we want to move this technology from test to implementation, and we're going to look at how we build the business case to go and see the boss to see if we can get the money to spend on the tech. So I will give you a quick 60-second wrap up with 2 minutes left. So Alex, any closing thoughts from you?
Oh, put me on the spot. Yeah, this is a fascinating discussion. I love this vision you gave us at the end, Chris, of the App Store is the perfect integration. You can just delete an app, download another one, and once it's downloaded, it just works. And I think Ian said something about, well, the problem is our core systems are like, they're different operating systems. They're all custom implementations with tons of hard coding. And so not everybody is running on the same iOS and the same Android. And so it doesn't just work like that out of the box. And so maybe to go back to your point, Chris, if at least on the motor supply chain side, if we could just have a common operating system that is open, such as CAPS, maybe then you'd be able to just download Tractable and it would start running. One big challenge we try to face, and the vision I laid out of that 2-day or same-day repair is scheduling with a repairer. And the problem is all those repairers might be using different scheduling systems. They might not even be systems. Well, if you've got something like CAPS and Integral taking care of that for you, you're starting to get that iOS everywhere.
And that's, Gordon, quickly onto you. That's 10x in property, right? When we've got the plumber, the builder, the carpenter, all on the same plane. And at best, they've got an iPhone, right? They've no operating system. They're tradesmen.
Absolutely, and even if you take it further, there's no agreed schedule or rates for insurance repairs in the UK. Right? Yeah. Okay, we can't agree as an industry. Right? Okay, a set of rates. So what are you going to do with the technology? Right, so yeah, it's 10x.
I am going to wrap us up there. Tony, go on, quick 30 seconds wrap up from you.
Yeah, I think we've heard the word integration many times in this discussion, and I think it's critical if you're going to get a smooth end-to-end claims process without integrations. And I find it very interesting that the key platform providers are pre-integrating with various suppliers so that you buy the platform and you get all these things out of the box. And I think that's a very smart thing for them to do.
Absolutely. Agreed. Ian, we'll see you soon. Thank you all. Thank you to all our attendees. I know in this current world, we've got a lot of people registering and watching this later. I think this whole series is a good asset that we we'll keep on the website, keep on our YouTube channel. If you want to know how to buy technology in claims, fingers crossed, by webinar 4, we will have told you how to do that. See you soon, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Panelists, Ian, if you have to shoot off, that's great, but I think we probably need to just hang around for a couple of minutes while everybody leaves the room. Okay. That was good fun today.
That was so good. Yeah,
That pace was great, wasn't it? I couldn't believe we got to the end of the hour.
It goes quick, doesn't it? It's like the, and we've probably still got a few people listening, so we won't say anything controversial. It's like when we do, it's the difference between a keynote and a panel debate when we do one of the conferences. We never schedule enough time for the panel debates. It's a much more fluid conversation, isn't it?
And I love that people were talking about the real challenges, when Tony called out the boogeyman, I was like, oh, wow. Or, when you mentioned efficiencies and headcount reduction and, not everybody wants,
Guys, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to leave. I just realised I'm meant to be briefing people about my team, so I better be on that one.
Thanks, Ian. Take care.
Cheers, take care. Good to see everybody.
Bye now.
Yes, take care.
Anyway, that's great.
Yeah. Very good. I'm not sure if we can call Eleanor back in at this stage.
Hi.
Hey, Eleanor.
Hello. Very well done, everybody.
Thank you.
Still got a few people hanging around. I can see that Banu is still here. Hi, Banu. Yeah, well done, everyone. Good webinar. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Great.
Thanks for the invitation, Chris.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
No,
thanks,
lovely to
Chris.
see you again, Tony. We'll get you involved in some more of this sort of stuff if you're up for it. This is a rare event for me to host. I begged Alex if I could be involved in one of these.
Good.
Right, am I clear to go as well, Anna?
Yeah, you're allowed to go, Chris. Thank you.
Okay.
Marvellous. Take
Okay,
care.
thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye,
Bye now.
Everyone.
Bye.